We are live.
Hey, Dr. Robertson, how are you?
I'm great, Dr. Mosley. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, first off, I want to thank you for joining me today to help me do this lecture. I know some of you guys probably sat in on my lecture on Friday that I was recording for put up
Was recording.
Yes, was recording, only to realize after we were done that I did not record any of it. So I'm having to recreate the entire lecture. Dr. Mosley is nice enough to help me out with that. So we're going to talk about chapter 2, microorganisms mostly, and won't be as interesting as having the whole class in here, but it'll be pretty good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Hey, you've taught this class before, haven't you, Matt?
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, but yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is mostly microorganisms, and I'm going to talk about viruses and bacteria today. I'm going to leave the parasites and the fungi till next week, and I'll hit those then.
Yeah. I mean, there goes all my best material. I love the fungi stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
A mushroom walks into a bar. Bartender says, "Hey, we don't serve your kind here." The mushroom goes, "What? I'm a fungi. Come on, come on."
All right, we're gonna ask you to leave now.
Okay.
Okay. Microorganisms. So microorganisms, basically, we're talking about things small enough you have to see them with a microscope at least. And what we're really concentrating on are pathogens, which are harmful microorganisms, ones that cause illness. And they cause illness in a couple different ways. We either get ill from consuming them and they do something to us, or we get ill from the toxins they produce. So the food, the bacteria that grows on the food can produce toxins that make us sick. And we'll talk about that when we get there. And this consumption of microorganisms, this is where most foodborne illness comes from. When someone gets sick, it's some sort of microorganism, probably a virus. If not that, then a bacteria, then could be a parasite, could be a fungi. But yeah, these are the things where we're at. So like I said, viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungi. Today we're just going to talk about the
top two.
The top two, thank you. And I'll hit the rest later. So, Matt.
Yes.
First question for you. How do you know when food in your refrigerator has gone bad?
Usually when it grows legs and walks away.
Yeah.
It really depends on what food it is. You know, some things they get a nice little slime to them. Some things discolored.
But when it comes to things that are dangerous, when it comes to toxins and things, can you smell them? You can't smell toxins.
No, that's the tough part, is that some foods look normal.
Yeah. You can't smell when it's bad. You can't see when it's bad. You can't taste when it's bad, when it's harmful. Now, there's a difference there. What we're worried about in this class is things that are harmful. Well, our food becomes unpalatable, and it'll smell terrible, and, you throw it away on the fridge. That food is not like, it may not be harmful. By the same token, food that smells and looks fine may be harmful. So we can't depend on this smelling it or looking at it. That doesn't work. So in this class, we'll concentrate on is our behaviors to ensure that our food are safe. And there are a few that we have to follow. Now, these right here, I've got an acronym up here of the things that pathogens need, dangerous microorganisms need in order to survive. And the thing that I like to think about is basically they've evolved and they like the same things we like. And they like a moderate temperature. They like healthy food. And if they have those things, then they're fine and they can grow. So what pathogens need to grow? Food, the appropriate.
Well, it's like protein-rich foods, right?
Yeah, and I've got all these will light up in a second.
Okay, sorry.
Food, the appropriate level of acidity and appropriate temperature, time for it to grow, the right oxygen environment, and moisture.
Mm-hmm.
So food, like you were saying, they need food that are rich in proteins or carbohydrates. They need an energy source, just like us. So what kind of foods are we talking about, Matt?
Well, I mean, we got them listed here, but really your meats, your poultries, your eggs, you know, your dairy. There's a reason why, like, if you're serving an actual Caesar salad and you're making it fresh table side, that you use not just the normal eggs that you buy in the store, because if you do, the chance of giving somebody food poisoning jumps up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the pathogens, you know, they eat the same things we do. They grow on our food. So that's one of the things they need. Next thing they need is the correct amount of acidity. And so on this scale, which indicates how acidic something is, 7 is neutral. 7 would be water.
Yeah.
Things that are more than 7 are alkaline. There is almost nothing in the kitchen that is alkaline. There are only 2 things we commonly encounter that are alkaline in the kitchen. That's baking soda and egg whites. Everything else is moderately acidic. Well, that moderately acidic, if you look at it, that less than 7, that's where most of the food is. And so that is the range that microorganisms like to grow. They really like that about 4.5 to 7.5. That's ideal for them to grow and survive. If the food gets too acidic, then the microorganisms can't grow. That's why we can do we have things, we can store things in lemon juice, or we make pickles and have pickles that sit out at room temperature. It's because it's too acidic. The microorganisms can't grow in it. One of the things that always surprises students is if you look at this chart, mayonnaise right here is probably too acidic for most microorganisms to grow in. So people always say, oh, the potato salad went bad. Well, it's not the mayonnaise in the potato salad that goes bad. It's the potatoes provide food for microorganisms. The mayonnaise itself is too acidic for anything to grow in.
Well, in the potatoes, part of it's because people don't let them cool properly before putting everything together. And the potatoes really hold a lot of heat for a ridiculous amount of time, and especially when it's bulk.
Yeah, and it's thick and it's viscous and it can't cool down, and we get some. There's a little bit of microorganism present there. It's a good environment for it to grow in. Yeah. It'll stay warm for a long time because it's so thick.
Yeah, it's got the temperature, it's got the moisture, and everything else to go for it.
Well, you said the temperature, and the temperature where these things grow is between 41 degrees and 135 degrees. We do our best in the restaurant to avoid keeping our food in this range. We keep it colder, which is why your refrigerator should be 41 degrees or below, or we keep it above 135. So your your steam table should keep your food 135 or above.
Yeah.
We avoid food in this range. This is the temperature danger zone. Then, let's see, what do we got here? Oh, it needs time. So, Matt, you and I, we're both healthy adults. Everybody taking this class, for the most part, is a healthy adult. We have a fully formed immune system. The food we eat has some bacteria on it. Mm-hmm. Everything we eat.
I mean, it's impossible to avoid.
Yeah, we don't have sterile food. No. So we depend on our immune system and the healthy flora in our gut, the healthy bacteria that we have in our gut, to kill the harmful bacteria mostly. So that's fine. We can survive that. But if the food sits out in the proper environment, it has time for these bacteria to multiply and grow, and they grow really fast, well, then we create an environment where there are too many bacteria for our immune system to handle.
Yeah.
Oxygen. And this one is problematic for the students sometimes because basically it can be anything. So what the correct answer is it needs the right amount of oxygen.
Yeah, because, if there is oxygen, some things can grow. And if there isn't, some things can grow.
Yeah, so aerobic grows in the presence of oxygen, like us. It needs some air. So aerobic bacteria, the ones that can grow in the presence of oxygen. We have anaerobic bacteria that only grow when oxygen isn't present. Yeah. And then just to make it even more confusing, we have some that are called facultatively anaerobic, which means they can change their metabolic processes, and sometimes they can grow in oxygen, and sometimes they can grow without oxygen.
Yeah, some sneaky bastards out there.
Hey, do you happen to know what bacteria we're particularly worried about with the anaerobic?
Not off the top of my head.
Mostly botulism.
My old friend botulism.
Yeah,
Yep.
so botulism grows in an anaerobic environment. So that is why we worry about cans, like a dented can. What we're worried about is that it may have a microscopic imperfection where the dent is. It allows a little bit of botulism spore to get inside and reproduce in that environment, which is rich in food and poor in oxygen.
Yeah.
Another anaerobic environment we encounter things like prepared lettuce, the bags of lettuce that you get in the grocery store. Those don't have oxygen in them. That bag is full of nitrogen because that stops the lettuce from turning brown. But that environment is free from oxygen, so it's a good environment for botulism. And then moisture. The food needs the appropriate, or it needs moisture to grow. There's a water activity scale, and water is a 1 on the scale, and then everything is like some fraction of that. And really what we need is at least 0.85. That means there's free water available that the bacteria can use to do their metabolic processes. We lower this number to make it so that there's less water activity. If we do things like, well, if you add gel or gelatin to it, that'll lower the water activity. That's why jelly doesn't go bad in your refrigerator, because there's actually no available free water. It's all bound up by the gelatin. Same thing again with the pickles. There's so much salt and things in the water that they've actually lowered the water activity, the available water for the bacteria to use to grow. Okay, for the most part, bacteria need more water. Funguses can grow with less water, only about 0.7. So funguses are hardier. That's why you find that jar in the back of your refrigerator and it's got fur growing in it. You ever encountered one of those, Matt?
It's been about 15 years, but yes, in my younger days, I would buy something and not realize that I had it until, you try to clean out the fridge or whatever because parents are coming and make it look nice. And you're like, ooh, right? Or when you're moving, that's never fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one other thing is, especially here where we live, where it's so humid, the environment can actually increase the available water in food. So like honey normally has a very low water activity of 0.06, but around here, if you leave it open, it can actually go up to 0.07, which is you're starting to get into that range there where stuff can grow. So humidity can affect it too.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a chart of just the water activity of some different foods. So if you look at something like bacon, less than 0.85. So bacon is one of those things that in restaurants, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but they cook bacon in the morning, then it sits out all day to be used to make sandwiches and stuff. And the reason is nothing can grow on it because the water activity is too low.
Yeah, and not just that, but I mean, bacon's a superfood. Let's just face it.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely great.
Yeah.
Okay, so foods that are likely to become unsafe. I enjoy this. This chart right here makes me think about the science and the constant evolution of science.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started teaching this class, it's probably the first time I taught this professionally was probably 23 years ago. Mm-hmm. There were fewer foods that we consider to be dangerous. And so in that,
well, I mean, we live and we learn.
And in that time, certain things we've had outbreaks. It's like, oh wow, this can be dangerous. Oh wow, this could be dangerous. So for the students, they will need to know these like the back of their hand. Like you will get the ServSafe exam will have a bunch of questions about this.
Well, yeah, and I remember Sprouts. I mean, and that was not even that long ago where, places like Jimmy John's were just tossing them onto sandwiches like they were going out of style. And then they had an outbreak and
like, whoa.
Next thing you know, it became an optional item.
Yeah.
onto everything.
So like the sprouts, and the cut melons,
Mm-hmm.
and cut leafy greens, those were not on this list before.
Yeah.
But they are now. So the things that are likely to become dangerous: milk and dairy. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. High in protein, high in carbohydrates, high in water content. Eggs. There are some eggs that are treated. You can actually get pasteurized shell and eggs. Those are safer. But eggs can become unsafe. Meat, again, high in protein, high in water.
Mm-hmm.
Good environment. Poultry, fish, shellfish and crustaceans, baked potatoes.
Yeah.
So baked potatoes, imagine this: you have a baked potato, and you take a fork and you poke some holes in it when you bake it. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happens when you do that is you're taking any botulism spores or bacteria that's on the outside, and you're pushing it to the middle. Okay, now it seals up in there, all the potato flesh seals it up. Now that's an oxygen-free environment. Now let's say we cook these baked potatoes at lunchtime and we put them in a warmer till dinner, which is a common thing to do in a restaurant.
Yes, it is.
If that warmer's, if it's overstuffed or maybe the temperature's not set right, that baked potato gets below 135 degrees. Now we have an oxygen-free environment that's rich in food in the temperature danger zone.
It's a party zone for all involved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Heat-treated plant foods. This means cooked food.
Yeah.
Cooked food potentially, can become unsafe. Hey, Matt, when you were growing up, did your mother or your grandmother have that jar of decorative pasta on the counter?
Yeah.
You know the what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
That stuff never goes bad. I know my mom had a jar of that I mean, my entire life it was there until I moved out. So this is 20-year-old pasta at least, just sitting there. And it's fine. It's not dangerous. It's dry. The water activity is too low.
Yeah.
But if you cook that pasta, it go bad.
Mm-hmm.
It goes bad. So heat treated plant foods like rice and beans and vegetables, dry rice, dry beans, they're safe. Once they're cooked, then they can become, then there's danger. Tofu and soy, bean sprouts, sliced melons, cut tomatoes, cut leafy greens, same thing here. The rind or the peel of a plant protects it. The minute you cut it, you're moving things that are on the outside of that plant inside it.
And that's why it's so important to wash everything, even a bag of lettuce that says it's pre-washed and ready to use.
Yeah.
If you don't wash it, you're just throwing the dice.
Yeah. And then untreated garlic and oil mixtures. So sometimes we'll make an infused oil with some garlic in it and the oil. Well, again, this is an oxygen-free environment. So if it's contaminated, boom, we've created a great environment for botulism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a slide I just put in there because it bugs me.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been teaching this class for over 20 years. And it used to be that the National Restaurant Association, who puts together this book, called food that was dangerous or could be potentially hazardous food. Which, wow, what a great title. This food could be dangerous. It's potentially hazardous.
Yeah.
And in the last edition of the book, they changed it to temperature controlled for safety food. What the?
Oh, come on.
What does that mean? Why not just call it potentially hazardous food? Because that's what it is. But anyhow, if you're in the book or on the test and you see TCS, and in a few places they still have PHF, these mean the same thing. These are the foods that can become dangerous if they're improperly handled. We contrast this, the temperature control for safety food, with RTE, which is ready to eat food. Uh-oh, we've got an expert in the house.
Yeah, we do. This one will eat anything.
Yeah. Doesn't really care about the food safety aspect of it.
No.
Okay, so TCS, foods that can become dangerous, but we'll also see RTE, which is ready to eat food. These are things that can be eaten without further preparation. So a cooked hamburger, that's ready to eat. A cracker, that's ready to eat. So if you see these terms, it's food that you don't have to do anything else to.
Yeah. Ah, yes, your deli meats, yum.
Yeah. All right. So I've got this little illustration of this thing that looks like a spaceship.
I've had nightmares about this stuff, I tell you.
Have you?
I don't know. It looks like a spider. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, this is actually an illustration of a tobacco mosaic virus.
Ooh.
But I like it because it was a real clear illustration of kind of the way what viruses look like, and it illustrates how they work. So a virus is really simple. It is technically not alive. It is a machine, sort of, that makes other viruses. So what happens is these scary looking legs right here, they attach to a cell.
Mm-hmm.
And then this piece of DNA inside the head of the virus is injected through this tube into the cell. This piece of DNA are instructions on how to make more baby viruses. So it just fills the cell up with viruses till it explodes. Boom. Now you have 1 million viruses in there, and they go infect other cells.
Wow. Yep. It has to have a host in order to reproduce.
Right.
So
it can't grow on its own because there are no organs or no biological functions. It is just basically a syringe to inject DNA to make other baby syringes. Yeah. So,
hi, Cooper.
So since they're so simple, viruses are scary. And it's great because the time we live in, all of us are kind of virus experts right now.
A little bit. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And the thing is that things like anthrax live in the soil for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Because they're not really alive. They're just dormant. They're just waiting.
They're just sitting
for
there.
The proper host to come along
and
to take over. Okay, go away, dog. And sorry.
So since they're so simple, they're like, for one, they're not affected by cold. You could have food that's contaminated with a virus, freeze it, thaw it, boom, still contaminated. It's not going to kill the virus because it's not alive. It's either, the food's either contaminated or not. So it's not affected by cold. They have to have a host to grow. We get them through contamination, food or water. And different viruses spread different ways, but some spread person to person, some spread person to food, some spread person to surface. And this is one of the issues that scientists have with COVID right now, is they don't really know all the different methods it can be spread by. There's not, we haven't had time to study it and explore all the possibilities. But with food, all of these are possible vectors.
Mm-hmm.
So viruses, customers get sick from eating food contaminated by an employee with a virus. That's how it happens.
This is where things get a little disgusting.
A little bit.
Yeah. So in other words, you know why we have all those damn signs in the bathroom saying employees must wash hands? Because some employees don't remember to wash their hands.
Studies say about 50% of people do not wash their hands when they go to a public restroom.
Yeah. Come on, people.
So this is how viruses get spread. It is fecal oral contamination. Someone uses a bathroom, does not wash their hands well, and contaminates a food or a plate or something that someone eats off of. And I know of a restaurant personally that had an outbreak because the dishwasher had hepatitis A. Apparently didn't wash his hands well after using the restroom, washed dishes. Someone got sick, got hepatitis A, and died.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. You don't want to be the place that's been associated with any kind of outbreak.
No.
Especially when they start talking about fecal transfer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because fecal transfer in your company name.
Yeah, that's not going to be a selling point.
It's going to be a high up on the Google search list, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
for viruses, if we have an employee that has jaundice is having yellow skin or eyes. And that's a sign of liver disease. Hepatitis is a liver disease. So if someone comes in, they have yellow skin or yellow eyes, that's jaundice. They should be excluded from operation. Don't let them in the door. And I'm talking yellow. My father-in-law had jaundice before he passed away. I'm talking Homer Simpson yellow. If an employee has vomiting or diarrhea, also exclude them from the operation. Make sure your employees wash their hands. I know when I was a chef, I would wash my hands 40 to 50 times a day. It was just You're constantly changing things, doing things. And so just washing all the time. And then try to minimize the amount of bare hand contact with ready to eat food. Okay. Some stuff for the students. For the ServSafe exam, this is what you're going to need to know about viruses and bacteria. I'm going to emphasize a few of them because there's some that are more likely to show up than others. So I'm going to let you know what those are. But what you're going to need to know is, the source, where you're likely to get this from, what food is it associated with? Like if I say salmonella, Matt, what food?
Well, I mean, first thing that comes to mind is chicken and eggs.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
So
but you also need to know that you can get it on fresh fruit and vegetables too. But I mean, really, chicken and eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the common symptoms because that helps you figure out what someone has. We're going to talk about how prevention. That's really the key here because we don't want anybody to get this stuff. And just know that there's a difference between the organism and the disease. So if I say Clostridium botulinum, that is the name of the organism. If I say botulism, that's
the toxin that's produced by Clostridium botulinum.
Yeah. Okay, so first we'll talk about viruses, and I'm only going to talk about a few. I'm going to talk about norovirus and hepatitis A. Now, we don't care about hepatitis B. We don't care about hepatitis C. I mean, they're bad. I'm sorry if someone has them, but they're not foodborne. So what all I'm concerned about here is hepatitis A because that's the one you get from food. And then most foodborne illness, most of the time when people get sick from things they've eaten, it's actually norovirus. This is the most common cause of foodborne illness. This is the one that you always see on cruise ships where people, and it spreads so easily. But this is fast acting. This is the most common cause of foodborne illness. The illness is technically called norovirus gastroenteritis, which basically means stomach pain. It's like this is my gut hurts because of norovirus.
Well, and that's probably, one of the things when everybody thinks, oh, I got food poisoning from someplace. Oh, my stomach hurts,
Yeah. And it's, norovirus is relatively quick acting. A lot of these take 36, 48 hours before you see symptoms. Some of them more than 6 weeks before you see symptoms. So, it's like tomorrow you're sick at work, Matt, and I could say, well, what'd you eat on July 4th? Because that may be the thing that made you sick. So it makes it difficult to keep.
Well, and it really makes it difficult for anybody to trace back anything at all because I can't remember what I ate yesterday.
Right.
So
yeah. So hepatitis A, transmitted by people or contaminated water. Also, you can get it from contaminated shellfish. It's very infectious, and this is one of those that can take months between the time you ingest it until you show a symptom.
Yeah.
If you get it from contaminated food, like food that's been touched by someone, what you're likely to get, it tends to be a milder form. And I say tends, like I said, I knew someone who died from it. So if you get it from contaminated shellfish or contaminated water, weakness, nausea, abdominal pain, jaundice.
Yes. The yellowing of the skin and eyes. Okay.
Yeah. So what do we want to do if someone has hepatitis? Exclude them. They're not allowed in the door. Your employee has hepatitis. Sorry, you're off work for a while. You want to minimize the amount of handling of food, ready-to-eat food, and buying from reputable suppliers.
Yeah.
I know you grew up in South Dakota, right, Matt?
I did, yes.
And you're allergic to seafood, correct?
I most definitely am, yes.
Okay, so you may not know the answer to this question. Do you know what months you're not supposed to eat shellfish?
I don't know. I would almost venture to guess in the summer, right?
Well, you're correct. And the rule
because it's warmer.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is we say months. If it doesn't have an R in it, you're not supposed to eat shellfish. So we don't eat
No kidding.
shellfish in May, June, July, and August, because those are the months that don't have R. And it has to do with the oysters are filter feeders. So whatever's in the water, they concentrate. And in those times of the year, that's when they're more, that's high agricultural activity. It's a better environment in the water for harmful bacteria. And then the oysters or the shellfish concentrate them because they're filter feeders. They clean gallons of water a day, sucking out the microorganisms that are in it. And so they become concentrated. So, would you be able to tell if an oyster was harvested at the wrong time, or if it came from, say, the Apalachicola Bay over in the Gulf?
Probably not, but the one thing I would probably avoid is the really large things.
Yeah.
If they're freakishly big, there's always that joke about don't buy out of the trunk of somebody's car.
Yeah. So with shellfish, especially, buy from a reputable supplier, someone who is harvesting it from places that are safe and harvesting it at times when it's safe.
Yeah.
Now, norovirus, again, transmitted by people or water or contaminated food. I mean, this may be the most infectious foodborne illness there is. It's spread. This is why, you get those situations where you have dozens or hundreds of people sick on a cruise ship. It's like one person has it, it spreads. Vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, abdominal cramps. We exclude
stomach diarrhea.
We exclude people who are contaminated. We exclude employees who are vomiting or have diarrhea.
Well, and here's the problem: is that it's easy to tell if an employee is vomiting.
Yeah.
But it's harder sometimes to tell if they have been suffering from diarrhea. They could take some antidiuretic medicine to help them get through a shift, but
again, buy from reputable suppliers. Minimize contact, hand contact with ready-to-eat food.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm going to talk about viruses. Those are the ones you need to know. The rest of today, we're going to talk about bacteria. It's funny, when I started teaching this class, at first we thought bacteria caused most foodborne illness. And when you see it, the things we teach, the practices are, we assume that bacteria is the big danger. So the reason we refrigerate food and keep it out of the temperature danger zone is because the temperature danger zone is where bacteria grow. And so all the things we do are to try and prevent this. That's why we have a refrigerator, is bacteria.
Yeah.
So the first thing is we want to avoid that temperature danger zone, and that's 41 to 135 Fahrenheit. Another thing you need to know about bacteria is they grow really fast. And so, like I said, your body, you can tolerate some bacteria. I mean, you have a healthy immune system, but there's a certain number, once it gets high enough, that overwhelms your immune system. And so the problem is the growth of the bacteria is like, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1,024. And now we're starting to get to numbers that might be dangerous. Other things about bacteria, they can form spores.
And that makes them pretty much like Bruce Willis and Die Hard at that point.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. You can't get rid of them. No. The spore is it's a form of the bacteria where it doesn't grow, it can't reproduce, but basically it kind of builds a shell around itself and just sits. And some bacteria in their spore form can survive boiling. It is a really hardy form that allows them to survive harsh environments. That's another thing we have to be aware of, that we can have bacteria that are present as spores, and that's fine as long as we say keep the food refrigerated. But the minute it warms up, then they're going to change to a form where they can start reproducing. Mm-hmm. And what we worry about with bacteria, there are some different ways they hurt us. A toxin is a biological poison, and a lot of bacteria produce toxins. So the way that bacteria can harm us is an infection, which means it's something the bacteria, we ingest it, and it harms our, like salmonella, it actually breaks down parts of the body. So that's an infection. It attacks the body. An intoxication is the bacteria produces a toxin, and the toxin causes the harm. So like E. coli, that's an intoxication. And then we can have, in a rare case, what's called a toxin-mediated infection, which is we ingest the spores of the bacteria. They grow inside your gut. As they grow, they produce toxins, and they poison you from the inside.
Yeah. Which, again, is part of the whole, some things can take a lot longer than others to show up why, you know?
So this chart here shows the growth phases of the bacteria. So let's say that I have a steak in the refrigerator. So in the refrigerator, any bacteria that are present, maybe they form spores because it's too cold. And I pull that steak out, and right here where I put this X, bam, I throw it on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it takes a little while for those bacteria to kind of wake up and leave the spore form. So, like there's this time period here, it's called the lag, where the bacteria is sort of getting ready to do their thing.
Yeah.
Then once they're warm enough and they realize, hey, we're sitting on a steak, this is a great environment, they start to grow. And it's a logarithmic growth. So this is like that super fast reproduction.
Yeah.
This is the logarithmic growth phase. Then we get to a stage where there's so many bacteria, they're producing waste products and everything, that as many are dying as are being reproduced. So now they've reached a steady level of in the food, but it's a very high level. But eventually the bacteria will produce so many byproducts, like they produce waste products just like we do, that they'll poison themselves and they will start to die off. And this is the death phase. Now, even if the bacteria die off, they leave their toxins behind. So, can't eat that food. Here is a picture just kind of illustrating the growth rate, 1 cell to 2 cells, 4, so on and so on. And so like within 10 hours, we're up to 1 billion cells. That's going to be harmful.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, I mean, we have bacteria right now. Look at your arm. You got bacteria on there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean.
Well, that's good. That leads me into the next slide.
Yeah.
So here are the bacteria that we're going to talk about in this class. I am going to try and stress some of them more than others because I know the ones that are likely to show up on the exam that I've seen in the past. I am not going to really expect you to be able to spell these names, but I will expect you to be able to identify them and know what they are. So Bacillus cereus, Listeria monocytogenes, Shiga toxin producing Escherichia coli, H01. I can't remember I can't remember. It'll show up on another slide. There's a specific strain that is deadly.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, just because you hear, one thing doesn't mean that necessarily that's going to be exactly like all strains are the same.
Right.
You're learning that in a certain environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Every one of us have E. coli present in our gut. You have it. I have it. Everybody has it. It's part of being an animal. But there are a few species of it, or a few strains of it, that produce a toxin. Clostridium perfringens, Clostridium botulinum, Salmonella, and this SPP right here, that means species. So that means there are many different species that cause the infection. Shigella species, Staphylococcus aureus, Vibrio vulnificus. So
this sounds a lot like a Harry Potter book right now.
It does. So you had mentioned that people had bacteria on their skin. 50% of all healthy adults have Staphylococcus aureus present on their skin. So I am pretty sure it's you, not me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely you, not me.
Yeah. So one of us, I'd say, have it present on our skin. This is the same bacteria that causes staph infection. So like on your skin, it can cause an infection. If you ingest it, it can cause an infection.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop here and open another set of slides real quick. We're
Okay.
going to talk
Excellent.
about the bacteria. Okay.
All right.
So do you see the slides, Matt?
Yeah, I can. There we go.
All right. So bacteria. Most of them we control by keeping them out of the temperature danger zone, which means usually that means we put stuff in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
It also means that once we've cooked it, maybe we keep it on the hot holding table or we keep it in the steam table to keep it above the temperature danger zone. But we never let stuff, ready to eat food, sit out in the temperature danger zone.
Yeah.
Bacteria need fat tom. They need food, acidity, time, temperature, oxygen, and moisture to grow. Some can form spores, like we mentioned, which is a tough form, which makes them really hard to get rid of, and some of them make toxins. Okay, I'll skip over this. So I'm going to skip forward a little. Here we go. This is one you're likely to see on the ServSafe exam.
Oh, survey says this.
Yeah, Bacillus cereus. Now, here is an easy way to remember this. If you get a question, probably about rice, but it could be about anything that is a cereal grain. So a cereal grain, rice, barley, wheat, anything like that. Those are cereal grains. So if you look at the name of this bacteria, it is Bacillus
Cereal.
cereal. Yeah, right here, Bacillus
Cereus.
So
Yeah.
they're talking about cereal grains. The disease it causes is Bacillus cereus gastroenteritis. Commonly get it from rice dishes. So if you have a question on the ServSafe exam that asks about a rice dish, fried rice, rice pudding, something like that, the answer will probably be Bacillus cereus. But anything that has a cereal grain, your first guess, if you're trying to narrow it down, Bacillus cereus. Common symptoms: nausea and vomiting. And you'll see a pattern with a lot of these. That
I mean, the hard part is that nausea and vomiting seems universal.
yeah, it's super common.
So what causes nausea and vomiting? It's like, really, what doesn't cause it?
Yeah. Most important preventative measure with Bacillus cereus is controlling time and temperature, which is we cook stuff to the appropriate temperature and then we hold it hot or we hold it cold, but we don't let it sit in the temperature danger zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Other preventative measures: cook, hold correctly, chill correctly. Listeria monocytogenes, and it causes listeriosis.
Oh, I never could look at ham the same way again.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
This one is my worst fear at a restaurant. And the reason this is my worst fear is because the common symptom is with pregnant women, it can cause miscarriage. And I don't want to cause someone to lose their child.
No.
This is really...
I mean, I talked earlier about you don't want to be, fecal matter, your company.
Yeah.
Lost baby, your company.
Yeah. And so it really affects pregnant women and small children. So, in pregnant women, it can cause miscarriage and can kill a small child. It can cause things like sepsis, blood poisoning, pneumonia, and meningitis. What's meningitis, Matt?
Well, I've actually had spinal meningitis, and what it does is it attacks your nervous system. In my case, it caused my brain to swell, my spine to swell, and I almost died. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, bad stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely don't get it. If you can avoid it. So
the things that it's associated with, mostly if you get a question and they're asking you about deli meat or hot dogs, the answer will probably be listeria. I mean, but the deli meat is the one we really associate with it. One of the scary things about listeria is it can grow at refrigerator temperatures. So this is a hard one to prevent and deal with. It also is kind of associated with unpasteurized dairy products. So don't use unpasteurized dairy products. Don't buy, artisan cheese from, the cheese farmer down the street who makes this from unpasteurized milk. If you want to eat unpasteurized cheese at home, have at it. Do not serve it to the public.
Yeah, and that's just one of those, like, again, reputable sources, also knowing what foods are safe and not safe. And it's a CYA.
Yeah, so control for time and temperature is the most important way to prevent it. And so that is, we keep food refrigerated. We keep, our deli meat stays super cold to not give Listeria a chance to grow. Other things, we throw out any product that's past its use-by date because it has a toxin present on it. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it, you don't know which slice of bologna is dangerous. Well, basically all slices of bologna are dangerous.
I mean, really, bologna, I mean, if you actually know how it's made, you just wouldn't touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to cook things to their correct minimal internal temperature. So if you're, Listeria can also be present in raw meat, so you want to cook it warm enough, hot enough to prevent it. Avoid cross-contamination, and just don't use unpasteurized dairy.
Yeah.
Okay, here is one that I bet you will get a question about on the search. And
I'm actually starting to regret volunteer. No, just kidding.
This one is nasty. I mean, this is bad. The disease it causes is called hemorrhagic colitis. So colitis is inflammation and attack of the intestinal tract, and hemorrhagic means bleeding. So the symptom is bloody diarrhea.
I mean, first off, any blood in any stool, a bad sign.
But what we're talking about here is the toxin that it produces, this Shiga toxin producing Escherichia coli. And what I was trying to remember was O157H7. This is the one that's particularly common and dangerous.
Yeah.
We're talking about, you have, and forgive me, there's no other way to describe it. You have diarrhea so bad that you're losing as much as a gallon an hour, which is 8 pounds. So you're losing 8 pounds of water an hour. And so, another symptom is abdominal cramps, but kidney failure, because you're becoming dehydrated so fast you die from this.
Yeah.
Very, very unpleasant.
Yeah.
This is why we cook hamburger and ground beef hotter than we cook steaks. The steak, a steak also is likely to have E. coli present on it, but a steak, if you think about this, we have this piece of steak, the bacteria on the outsides of it, they're not inside it. So they're present on the outside. So if we throw it on the grill, we sear, we cook the crap out of the outside.
Yeah.
But
with ground beef, I mean, you're sitting there and you're taking that steak that has everything on the outside
and moving it.
You're just kind of whooshing in. Then you probably have somebody who's like patting it or doing something else with it.
So we've moved those bacteria inside. So, we sear the outside of a steak and kill those bacteria. Well, now those bacteria are inside. So that's why we have to cook hamburgers hotter than we have to cook a steak, is because of the presence of E. coli inside the meat. So again, most important preventative measure, time and temperature control. So we don't let it sit out and warm, and we cook it to the appropriate temperature, which is 155 degrees Fahrenheit, by the way, minimum. For me, when I go out to eat, I like a rare steak. It's just, I prefer it. But when I order a hamburger, midwell. That's
I mean, honestly, like, I have a friend who loves it medium rare, and I just go, what the F is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I'm like, I almost want to show him that 60 Minutes episode from the 1980s.
Your Boy Scout episode?
Yes. And just be like,
hey, is that available on YouTube somewhere?
You know what? I should ask Dr. Almanza about that.
If you do, I will try and post that this week for the students to watch.
Because you know, it's heartbreaking. It is.
I'm gonna see if I can find that and put it up. Other things. So cook food to minimal internal temperatures. Buy from reputable suppliers. Avoid cross contamination between raw and ready foods. Keep employees with diarrhea out of the operation. And if they're diagnosed with hemorrhagic colitis, keep them out. If your employees have bloody diarrhea, don't let them work. You know, seems like that's kind of a no-brainer that you wouldn't have to think about a lot, but we're going to go ahead and put that out there. Okay, Clostridium perfringens, which causes Clostridium perfringens gastroenteritis. I'll go ahead and tell this. It's associated with things like stew, like thick dishes like that, diarrhea and abdominal pain. I have never seen a question on the ServSafe about this. I've been teaching this for over 20 years, never seen a question. So know it. It could be on there.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you should know it, but yeah, like you said, it's and they sometimes it goes in cycles, and what is like new and fresh, or what's more important to know about now, sometimes get more impressive.
And I think the reason why they don't put it on the exam and question it is because we have Clostridium perfringens, and we have another foodborne illness which is really super dangerous in the same family, which is Clostridium botulinum. So I think they want people to pay attention to the botulism because that one is a bigger threat. So diarrhea, abdominal pain are the symptoms. Time and temperature control are the important preventative measures. We want to make sure we cool and reheat food properly because, like I said, this is thicker liquid things like stews or gravies that are thick and viscous. They take a long time to cool down, so they're likely to have to sit in the temperature danger zone for a long time. And then hold food hot enough.
Yeah.
The bad one. Now, all of them are bad.
Well, yeah, but I mean, botulism.
But this one is bad on a different scale. You know, it's even hard to imagine how bad this one is. So the most common cause, what we commonly associate with is canned foods. So either home canned foods or a can that's been damaged, because this is the one that grows in an anaerobic environment. It can't grow in the presence of oxygen. So, you know, think about canned food. It's sealed, no air can get in there. That's a great environment. Also, reduced oxygen packaged food like lettuces in a bag. Another common danger. I already mentioned the baked potatoes. You know, if you poke holes in them, and then you've created that environment on the inside. The initial symptom, and the onset of this is very fast, will be like nausea and vomiting. But then, you may get weakness or double vision or difficulty speaking or swallowing. But that's not the end of it. You know how this is most commonly identified, what the symptom is that is the usual diagnostic tool?
They start singing Foreigner's Double Vision.
No.
Double vision.
Even worse than that. The most common symptom with botulism is death.
Ah, yes, our old friend being dead.
Yeah. So just a little bit about, I usually have a paper clip that I use to make this illustration, but a paper clip weighs a gram.
Yeah.
How many people can I kill with 1 gram of botulism toxin? So the weight of a paper clip.
Hundreds.
Botulism toxin is the most potent poison known to man. It is lethal at 9 millionths of a gram.
Ooh.
So a paper clip could kill everyone that lives north of Macon in the state of Georgia.
Is that a bad thing? No, just kidding.
It could kill
joking.
1 paper clip's worth could kill everyone in New York City.
Wow.
This is so this is why this one is so dangerous. You can't see it, can't smell it, can't taste it. Yeah. And so the common way that people are affected by that is they will open canned goods or a home canned good, and they will either pull one out and taste it, or actually even smelling it. You can ingest enough of the toxin to kill you that way. So You never, ever taste food to see if it's bad, because the risk is death. Okay? Just,
Yeah.
I can't stress this bad. This one is bad.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the ones that we've talked about, this one is the one where, and by the time that they find out that somebody died from botulism, we're saying it's way far past, it's going to be a couple people dead before they kind of link it
Yeah.
to where.
So what do we do? Time and temperature control, heat and cool food correctly, and inspect canned foods for damage. This is why the health inspector will give you a critical health violation if you have a dented can on property anywhere. So like if you have a can that's got a dent in it, health inspector sees it, bam, critical health violation.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, people with kids, even, they know not to give their kid honey,
yeah,
newborns and stuff, because,
it's like, it's possible that it will have botulism spores in it. You get, it's just, there's a risk.
Yeah, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to switch over and talk about some foodborne illness that where we concentrated on cross contamination, and really the king here is salmonella. Now, salmonella is hard to kill. We have to cook salmonella hotter than any other bacteria to kill it. That's why we cook poultry to 165 degrees. This is why in a refrigerator, we order food the way that we do. On the bottom, you have the chicken. The next one will be like ground beef. Then above that will be, say, steak. And then above that would be like a cake when you order food in a refrigerator by the shelves. And the reason the chicken is on the bottom is because we have to cook it the hottest to make it safe. So if some juice from the ground beef leaked on the chicken, well, the E. coli is killed at 165, at 155.
Yeah.
So that's fine because we're going to cook the chicken to 165. So that's fine. But if we turn that around, if we have the chicken above the ground beef and a little bit of salmonella dripped on the ground beef, well, you have to cook the salmonella to 165 to kill it. We're only going to cook the ground beef to 155. It's still dangerous.
Well, this is a good point, too, that most people may not think about if they don't eat ground beef and they're making, say, ground chicken burgers. They need to cook it even more and even farther than you would cook your hamburger. Yeah. There's no such thing as a medium rare chicken, anything.
No. No. So it's commonly associated with poultry and eggs. That's the most common. And it can be, sometimes with cross-contamination, it'll show up in other products like dairy and produce. Symptoms: diarrhea, abdominal cramps, vomiting, fever. This one is particularly nasty. If you have salmonella poisoning, you have salmonellosis, you are profoundly, profoundly sick. It is very unpleasant. So the one we concentrate here is cross-contamination. We prevent cross-contamination. That's the important part with salmonella. Other preventative measures: we cook things to the correct internal temperature. We cook our chicken 165. We cook our eggs to the recommended temperature.
And this is part of why I never eat anything but scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
I'm weird.
Yeah. Well, but the eggs, depending on how they're produced, are slightly different temperatures they have to be cooked to. Yeah. Like if they're going to be held on a buffet or they're going to be served fresh, there's some things we do slightly differently. Yeah. And, if we have an employee diagnosed with salmonellosis, keep them out. Illnesses that we're going to concentrate on: personal hygiene is the most important way of controlling them. Shigella or shigellosis and staphylococcal gastroenteritis. Shigella comes usually from composed salads, like a salad containing potatoes or, like tuna salad, shrimp salad, something like that. Or it could be even from food that's made with contaminated water. Those are both common ways to get it. Funny enough, it's not like when you have like chicken salad, it's not the mayonnaise that's dangerous. Because like I said earlier, the mayonnaise is too acidic for bacteria to grow. It's the shrimp, it's the tuna, it's the potato that's in the salad that's providing the environment for the growth.
Yeah.
Bloody diarrhea, abdominal pain and cramps, maybe fever. And the preventive, good personal hygiene. If we have an employee with diarrhea, kick them out. If we have an employee who's diagnosed with shigellosis, kick them out. Hand washing and pest control. Flies can spread Shigella, and so you want to, good pest control, keeping the doors shut, screens on the windows, screens on the doors, keeping the flies out, covering the garbage. That helps prevent Shigella. Staphylococcal gastroenteritis spread by Staphylococcus aureus. This is just like Shigella in that composed salads. Either one, both of these are likely to, they overlap that way that, chicken salad, tuna salad, egg salad are common vectors for the disease. The symptoms, nausea, vomiting, retching, abdominal cramps. And like I said earlier, this is why you don't touch your hair. This is why you don't scratch your face. This is why you cover your wounds with Band-Aids. This is why you wear gloves, because half of all healthy adults have it present on their skin.
Well, and this one is one of the fast, incubation period ones too.
Really?
This is, it's, 30 minutes to 8 hours.
Wow.
For staff.
Yeah.
And typically you're sick for about a day.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, it drives me nuts when I see somebody at work and they're constantly doing this and they're, it just, and then all of a sudden they go and they grab your plate or your, anything. You don't have to necessarily touch the person's food to screw them over.
Right. If you get it on the plate, now it's on the plate, and if they, the food could come in contact with it. So good personal hygiene is a preventative measure here. Avoid touching your hands, face, or body. Cover wounds with a Band-Aid, a glove, a finger cut. Eat and cool and reheat food correctly. Yeah. Okay, another one. We're going to talk about Vibrio vulnificus.
Oh, very good.
So this is one. This is shellfish. It's associated with oysters. And that's one thing. And when we get done with this class, you may never want to eat oysters again because there are so many potential dangers here. But this is a bacteria, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, low-grade fevers, and chills. And basically, like I said, the oysters are filter feeders. They concentrate. If there's something dangerous in the water, they concentrate it. And so then you ingest it and now you have it.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah. There's another one called Vibrio parahemolyticus gastroenteritis. Just another, again, same symptoms, same food. Okay. How do we prevent it? Buy from reputable suppliers. With shellfish.
That's pretty much suppliers. For everything, you should really buy from trusted suppliers. Just because somebody happens to have gone fishing that day and pulled up a catch,
Now, this is another reason why this is particularly important to stress is that if shellfish do not cross state lines, they're not inspected. They do not have to be inspected to be sold. So, if they're caught within the state of Georgia, they don't have to be inspected before you buy them. So they could come from anywhere. This is why you buy from a reputable supplier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you cook them to the correct minimum internal temperature. Now, as someone who likes a raw oyster on occasion, this is, it's an informed risk. I know what the risk is.
I've never been more happy to be allergic to shellfish than when I see people eat oysters. I'm just going to say that right now. Come on. It's sea boogers, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 2 or 3 beers in, and it seems like a good idea.
Hey guys, let's get a flight of oysters. It's going to be great.
Hey, I like oysters. It's like,
Oh.
and I only like them raw, yeah, which makes it even worse, you know. But it's an informed risk. I know what the risk is. I know when they're particularly dangerous. I know where they should come from, and I am taking that risk.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Parasites. All right.
Parasites are multicellular. So like bacteria, are singular cellular. Parasites are multicellular. They're a little more complicated. They need a host to survive. They're commonly spread through feces. They can be spread through contaminated water, and will make you sick. Now it's funny. The one parasite that most Americans are familiar with from food isn't really a risk anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you ask your grandparent, your grandma, what kind of meat you have to cook well done, she'll say pork. And that was because we used to worry about a parasite called trichinosis, which is worms in the muscle. Yeah. But the last American to get that was diagnosed with trichinosis from pork occurred in 1995. So we have 25 years of successfully eradicating that particular foodborne parasite. That was a big one. So the ones that are still a problem are anisakiasis, cryptosporidiosis.
What? You didn't take Latin for 20 years to figure this out?
And giardiasis.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause here for a second.
Okay.
And tell the students, if you're eating, stop. If you have a particularly sensitive stomach, skip the next slide. I'm just going to warn you. Okay.
Well, you know what? We all find something that we can get grossed out about. Just remember that you can prevent most of this, okay?
Yeah. So the first one I'm going to talk about is anisakiasis. And it comes from raw fish or undercooked fish. Salmon, mackerel, cod, herring, halibut. So these look like mostly oily fish. So the symptoms, tingling in throat. That doesn't sound too bad.
Because it's a worm.
Yeah. So
that's the tingling.
Yeah, the tingling in your throat is that the parasite has embedded in your throat. It's planted eggs in your throat, and these are the worms erupting through your throat, and you cough them up.
It's so gross. If you wrote this for a movie, you wouldn't believe. You'd be like, nah, that's BS.
Yeah, you cough up living worms. It is particularly terrible.
Yeah.
So now the next question coming from the students is usually, wait a minute, I like sushi. What am I supposed to do? Well, the way you prevent this, you buy from reputable suppliers. You cook fish to the correct minimum internal temperature. Mm-hmm. And this is why the reputable supplier is so important. If you're going to be serving it raw or undercooked, buy sushi grade. And in this case, sushi grade means that it's been frozen long enough to kill the parasites.
Yeah, and some people are like, oh, you can only get good sushi on the coast. Well, honestly, everything's pretty much deep frozen, all that fish to kill this stuff. Yeah. So you can be in the middle of South Dakota and get sushi if it's prepared by somebody.
Well, I lost you there for a second, Matt.
Oh, sorry. I was saying if you happen to be in, say, South Dakota, you could get just as good as sushi if it's prepared by somebody skilled enough.
Well, the really important part here, buy sashimi or sushi grade. This means that it's been frozen to make sure that it's safe. Oddly enough, the highest grade of fish is going to be frozen. I would not eat a fresh piece of mackerel that was undercooked, but I will eat a sushi grade piece. So again, the important thing, reputable suppliers make sure that it's been properly handled. I don't want to cough up a worm. I don't want my guests coughing up worms. That's too gross.
Yeah, there's certain lines that are too far, and that's one of them.
So cryptosporidiosis comes mostly from contaminated water or from eating produce that has been contaminated, that's gotten contaminated from water. Symptoms: watery diarrhea, abdominal cramps, nausea, weight loss. It makes you sick enough that you can't eat. You start to waste away.
Yeah, and before those who think this is a great diet plan because of the weight loss, it comes back as soon as you're done with it.
Yeah,
it's water loss.
Yeah.
So,
again, buy from reputable suppliers so that you know that the food and the water have been handled properly. If you have sick employees, keep them out of the operation, and hand washing.
Yeah. Wash your filthy hands.
Yeah. So next we'll talk about Giardia. The disease is Giardiasis, Giardia duodenalis, Giardia lamblia, Giardia intestinalis. Comes again from improperly treated water or from produce that's been contaminated with improperly treated water. Fever, diarrhea, abdominal cramps, nausea. These are the common symptoms, but I'll tell you, it can actually affect your nervous system also. And I know this for a fact. I have a good friend of mine's mother. She took her mother on a whitewater rafting trip in Colorado.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. And her mother apparently swallowed some water while they were out on the river.
Kind of hard not to do.
Hard not to. And so they suspect, and so Giardia can be spread. One way it spreads through beavers. So they suspect there was a beaver dam upstream somewhere. She got infected with it, and it attacked her brain.
Wow. That's chilling.
Within 2 weeks, she went from a woman who was whitewater rafting for fun to a paraplegic for the rest of her life and had to live in an institution.
Now, is this the same stuff that they worry about with neti pots and stuff?
Yes,
yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, because I've had sinus issues in my life. So unfortunately, I'm a little familiar with that.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah, it's
again, buy from reputable suppliers so that you know the water was safe. Let's see. Keep food handlers who are sick out. Wash their hands. So a lot of commonality. So that's as far as I'm going to go today.
Sounds good.
That's enough.
That's yeah. I mean, and here I was about ready to prepare lunch, man, and I was gonna have sushi. It was gonna be amazing. And
so I'll pick up and start talking about fungi next week.
You're all so lucky.
Yeah. Thank you for helping me out with this, Matt.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to the students for losing some potential lunch options. Yeah. So,
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.